guys, my name's Tricia Panikoula, as I've already said. I've got my Twitter handle up there if you want to write anything, nasties or whatever. As Tom said, today I'm going to be talking about, I'm from Rockingham and I'm going to be talking about using hip hop in an English classroom. So first things first, most of you would have heard of hip hop before. Some of you probably absolutely loathe it, some of you might listen to it, but the fact of the matter is a lot of your students do, in fact most of them probably do, and they engage with hip hop culture in some way. So I've had some real success in using hip hop in my classroom. So my classroom, there's some lovely faces. I teach at Rockingham Senior High School, pretty low SES school. We've got quite a few issues with literacy, major issues with motivation and engagement. A lot of them come from families where academic pursuits are not exactly the #1 priority, so just getting them engaged can be a really difficult thing. In fact, that was probably my battle for my first 2 or 3 years there, just getting them to actually enjoy the work that they're doing in English. So I found that, and I promised I wasn't going to use this P word because it's a bit wanky, but anyway, I found that approaching it with a bit of a hip-hop pedagogy has been quite effective, because I don't know about you guys, but at my school there is a real disconnect between students' individual backgrounds and the instruction and the text that they traditionally receive and study at school. And for me, hip-hop pedagogy is really about culturally relevant teaching for your students, and the use of hip-hop text to promote academic engagement and really encourage critical thinking about hip-hop culture. This is a culture that they engage with on a daily basis, so why not get them to think critically about this culture through the use of hip-hop text? Okay, issue, keeping it real. A lot of people are probably wary about using hip-hop in the classroom. Myself, I'm alright, got a bit of swag, so I'm all good. But a lot of other people are probably a bit funny about using it. You're going to stand up in front of the class and they're going to be like, oh lame, you're just using this to engage us. But seriously, I really encourage you to embrace it, because what I found that it gives students a space for themselves in their learning, and for my students especially, conveys the idea that their cultural texts are just as worthy and relevant of study. And if you have low literacy kids, like the majority of my kids, I got stage 3 classes here, woo, but that was my first one, it conveys the idea that their texts are just as relevant, and it empowers them in a way that they've never been empowered before, because they're used to walking into classrooms constantly feeling disempowered because of their literacy issues. So I find it really good. I really encourage people to see hip-hop as literature. A lot of people I know use it kind of as a bridge to other texts and other discussions. I like to use hip-hop and study it as text, and to also, this is an important part, see the value in good hip-hop and bad hip-hop, and to kind of illustrate what I mean by good hip-hop, bad hip-hop. Bit of an example. Bad hip-hop, Chris Brown, not exactly the best rapper around, but the fact of the matter is, he is someone who a lot of your students probably listen to. So starting off really simply, I had a Year 9 low literacy group of Year 9 boys, and everything I did with them, it was just useless. So we started off with some really simple improving decoding skills and vocab knowledge. So we did his song Run It, and we basically looked at the lyrics. It starts off, let me talk to you, tell you how it is. And we brainstormed, well, what are some other ways that we can write, let me talk to you? And they come up with things like, oh, let me talk to you, can I talk to you, may I talk to you, can I please talk to you, amazing. And then also looking at some of the slang terms used, shouldy, kick, sick, and getting them to brainstorm synonyms for those terms, so improving their vocabulary knowledge with a text that they're familiar with. Other things I've done, and I'm getting a bit wanky again now, commodification of slang. Something I've done is explored the use of slang that has roots in hip-hop texts and culture. You're probably familiar with the term YOLO. Sorry about that. Rapper Drake's song The Motto, released in 2011, is pretty much considered to be to blame for the term YOLO. So as a project, what I've done with students before is get them to pick a term that has origins in hip-hop culture and sort of trace the pathway of that and look at how it's actually been picked up from sort of an underground culture and then commodified and popularised and sold as a product. So the academic sort of link, students draw connections between the cultures they engage with and the global impact of these cultures. Probably more so for upper school, sorry if you're easily offended, but looking at some words that are used in a lot of hip-hop music that are pretty powerful, can be seen as offensive, but getting them to actually critically analyse these words and think about their role and their influences. So common terms dropped, you know, bitch, the N-word, getting them to actually deconstruct, well, what are the denotative meanings of these words, and then what are their connotations, and how do these sort of change and develop depending on context, okay? So that's a really great song. Lupe Fiasco, he does some awesome stuff, some great songs, where he's, in this song in particular, he's deconstructed the use of the term bitch and looked at how it's used differently by male rap artists and by female rap artists. So, cool. I've got so much to get through, sorry. Hip-hop is poetry. There are a lot of bad artists, Chris Brown, but there are also a lot of fantastic hip-hop artists that are like modern-day poets, people like Talib Kweli and Mos Def. And I use their songs as pieces of poetry and get the students to look at, you know, poetic devices and incredible use of language. Just a couple of examples. Common, his song I Used to Love Her is basically an extended metaphor about his relationship with hip hop, and he describes a relationship with a girl to represent that. Students really connect with that in a way that they don't in sort of traditional poetry, so I found that kind of effective. Another example, Black Star, they're collaboration between Mos Def and Talib Kweli, just some really awesome use of language to get them to realise that rap doesn't just have to be ho, go, slow, you know, it can be some really awesome rhyme and alliteration and assonance and some awesome examples of poetic devices. Probably the best resource I have is rapgenius.com. I don't know if you guys have heard of it before, but it's a really cool website where basically there's hundreds of thousands of rap songs uploaded to it already, and they've basically been annotated by people already. So the annotation, so for example in this song he's dropped ancient Abyssinia, the kids are going to be like, what? But if they go to this website, click on that line, it'll come up with an annotation that explains what that actually is. They can add videos, pictures, etc. to these annotations, and it's really effective. I actually used it today, thank you, with my kids. And one of the cool features about this website is that some of the lines appear in green, and if they're in green, they click on them, and it means that the actual artist themselves has a Rap Genius account and has added an annotation, so it's really cool. Okay, last couple of things. There's someone calling, tell me shut up. So typical criticisms, a lot of people are probably thinking, why teach hip hop? It's full of misogyny, sexism, violence and drug use. The fact of the matter is, your students listen to it anyway, so why not teach them to critically analyse the messages that are in mainstream hip hop, to critically analyse the representations of women and also men within that, I think is really important. The last example, I did this period 1 today, so I thought I'd talk about it. I talked to my students about a song, Kendrick Lamar's Swimming Pools, asked them if they'd heard of it before. They all had. I said, what's the song about? Getting fucked up, miss, getting wasted. And I was like, yeah, it is. When we went through and actually deconstructed the lines, what they figured out was that this song isn't just about that. It's about peer pressure that comes with that and the effects of heavy drinking. So getting them to actually critically engage with the text that they listen to every day. Okay, that's it. Done.